HomeShow Garden Pros, helping to turn your thumb green.
Greetings, gardeners. It is I, Danny Milliken. I'm here with Becky Griffin. She is the founder of the Houston Gardening Club on Facebook. It's one of those club pages. Thousands of people. Becky, how many thousands of people do you have in your group?
About 16,000.
16,000 people. That's so many people. Anyway, that's awesome. It's so exciting that so many people are gardening. And I understand it's like, 30, 40 people a day jump on, want to learn how to do it. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to help you out there in, Facebook land, YouTube land, however you're watching this show. We are happy to have you to help you be a better gardener. And that's what HomeShow Garden Pros is all about. We bring in people who know their stuff, people leading gardening groups, part of getting the information out there like Becky's doing. We love our co-op members. You got Enchanted Gardens and Enchanted Forest down Southwest Houston, kind of bookending Richmond. Nelson Nursery and Water Gardens, they're right in Katie's go-to nursery, awesome spot. Don't forget up in Kingwood, Warren Southern Gardens and Kingwood Garden Center there. And then on 249, just past Louetta, Plants for All Seasons. They're just people that on the radio show every Saturday, 7 to 9 a.m. We have a radio show. Becky muted herself. Oh, gotcha. Thank you. We have a radio show, and we're just dishing out gardening information. It's one of those call-in shows. We love answering your questions. HomeShow Garden Pros. So if you ever heard of 610 a.m., pretty big radio show here in Houston, covers sports mostly, the official show of the Texans, I believe. That's what we're on. So every single Saturday, 7 to 9, we want to answer your gardening questions, and that's what we want to do right now here too. So Becky, we had that freeze happen. I think you may be muted. She's checking out her mutedness, but I think that she probably doesn't need us to confirm we had the freeze because we had it, and it was pretty tough. It was pretty tough. A lot of us lost a lot of plants. I sat in on a kind of veterans gardening group last night called HUG, Houston Urban Gardeners, and a lot of them have been through some of this sort of thing before, and they were it was pretty hopeless. It was a kind of a downer because they were talking about citrus and how, you can just regraft it. And I was like, man, most people don't want to do that. So, Becky, how did your plants fare in the big chill?
They did. Can you hear me?
Yes. Now you sound great.
Okay, good. A lot of them are doing okay, but some of them are not. One shock to me was my bottle brush. I didn't think that I was going to have to cover that, but it's toast at this point.
Probably is toast. I think it's one of those things where there's the very tropical plants that everybody knew to cover, but it didn't help to cover them because it was too cold. Then there were kind of the medium plants that they should have covered, but they don't normally cover. So they didn't cover, but that would have actually helped them. But yes. Bottle brush can be tough. I'm very surprised by the tree form bottle brushes. The big bottle brush, those are the ones I'm surprised by.
I was also interested in... Go ahead.
No, I want you, please. Sure.
I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say that someone had asked a question about a citrus tree, and I also had the same question because mine, I wasn't sure if they made it or not.
I'm continuing to give the same advice with citrus, is that I just want you to treat them like they're normal. So fertilize them. I want you to, make sure you're mulching them, prune them a little bit if you got any crossing branches or downward hanging branches. But as far as like cutting them way back, wait till you get new growth. Keep doing scratch tests. Keep paying attention to that. But as far as like, you wanting to do a major thing with your citrus, they look bad. The leaves are dead, and we'll see. A lot of folks are very pessimistic about them. They think that if you have any kind of sensitive ones like limes or lemon, you probably lost it. So that's, it matters what kind of citrus you had.
Right. Mine's a Meyer lemon.
Yeah. How cold did it get where you are?
I think it was down to to be honest, I don't know, but I know it was in the teens.
Yeah. Yeah. At my house in kind of the Bel Air area, I think we got down to 15, 14. But then at Memorial, which is really just like 4 miles away, it was down to 12, which is definitely a killer for almost all citrus. Kind of the most cold hardy ones are kumquats and maybe some of the other like limequat, maybe just as cold hardy. Satsumas are cold hardy, but the Meyer lemons are pretty bad. They're pretty rough. So as far as like cold front goes, so probably lost your Meyer lemon, which is sad for sure. If you followed our advice, you covered up the graft, you covered up the trunk, made a little permissible volcano this one time around the trunk, and that was helpful for you. Hopefully it comes back. But keep scratch testing. Keep testing that bark, making sure it's staying green, and that's what you got to do. So Becky, what is happening on the Facebook gardening group these days? People kind of trying to look ahead a little bit more?
Yes. I think that the number one question is, what do I do with all of my plants after the freeze? That has been, but we're seeing new life come, and that's usually what happens is you have to give it a little while, longer than you would like. I know that we like to get in there and make decisions really quickly when we see our plants are not doing well. But the best advice after a freeze is just to wait. I know that's not our favorite thing to do.
Definitely not.
Is my video lagging?
It is lagging a little bit, but it's okay. I mean, yeah, I think you look great, so we're fine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes. So the new life and the new growth is always encouraging, and I love to see that on our groups. One of the really standouts has been all of the tulips that are blooming. And the tulips love that cold weather, so they're just really thriving.
Yeah, one thing I think with those is it makes them all come up at one time, which is what everybody wants, to have that big show happening. Lovely stuff.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of like moving forward, what should we do now?
Sure.
Yeah, so how'd you get the inspiration to start this Facebook group?
Oh, well, I moved to Houston from Louisiana. That's where I was born and raised. And I noticed that even just a 5-hour difference between Baton Rouge and Houston was so huge as far as gardening. So in Baton Rouge, every day around 3 to 4 p.m., we have a shower, like a rainstorm. And it really helps the gardening you don't have to always be on top of it. But I noticed in Houston, we didn't get that little shower in the afternoon. And plus the soil is so different. And the way that certain plants that were working in Louisiana were not thriving in Houston was a real eye-opener. So I didn't know anybody in the area. I thought, I'll just start a group. And that was, I want to say, 10 years ago. And nothing really happened for the first 5 years. And then it just started to grow organically.
And have you seen the last year during COVID, have you seen a lot of growth as well?
Yes, it's exponentially grown. I would say 200 people a day, easy at this point, are joining.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, it's a lot of work to keep up with, to get them all approved and make sure you weed out the bots. Am I right? They're always like coming in.
Yes.
Tell us why you want to garden. Yes. What do you love about gardening?
Exactly.
Yes. It's like, that's a fake. That's a fake answer. You're out. So, well, you're doing a great job. It's a great group, totally not political, very pleasant, a lot of hope. And so that's really cool. And that's what we're going for. We've linked kind of the two together a little bit, HomeShow Garden Pros and Houston Gardening Group. You guys doing such a great job. Usually I cull these questions that we're going to answer from our HomeShow, HomeShowGardenPros.com page. But this time I took them mostly from your site. So that's kind of cool. Was able
that's awesome.
So we'll answer some Houston gardening group questions today. So you ready to start answering some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
I guess maybe you've seen some of these since they're, already yours. So. All right, here we go. Here's the first one.
Right.
This is from Jessica. She says, hey, y'all, I finally want to plant something pretty and flowery. See, that's hopeful. Have a spot about 2 by 4 foot that's full sun all day. Any suggestions for something to put there that's pretty and beneficial, something that's good for pollinators? Jeff, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great question. This is one of my favorite plants, of my favorite flowers of all kind. It's a perennial. It's called Salvia leucantha, or Mexican bush sage. That's just my all-time favorite. If anyone asks me what to plant, I always say that first. But of course, Salvia leucantha, and then I would say, of course, the purple cone flowers are great. Black-eyed Susans. Those are standards, milkweed. And one thing I would say about the milkweed is make sure you check with some of our local our partners, our local partners. They'll make sure that you have the right variety of milkweed because there are some out there that can actually do harm to the butterflies and the pollinators. So just make sure it's a good local grower that gives you the milkweed. And two of my favorites also is if you can find a plant called thrift, like thrift store. Those are beautiful, and they're you could probably find them again in a local nursery. And one of my all-time favorites is called spiked speedwell. So the speedwell varieties are beautiful, but this particular one, the spiked, are just really gorgeous.
That is so cool. I'm not familiar with speedwell. I need to look it up. So why do you love Salvia leucanthus so much?
They're really velvety in feel. They feel like velvet, and they're stunning. They get to be about 2 to 4 feet in height and width, and they just fill out a space really nice. But just the way that they grow, they're just so beautiful. And I love the feel and the color. There's a really, really deep purple color.
Yeah, the flowers are beautiful, and the benefits of pollinator attraction and low water. I mean, it's really a winner.
Right.
It checks a lot of boxes for kind of Jessica's question. So nice work. I love things that take up some space, and so you said it, but that the echinacea is a great one to go with. Purple coneflower, really a wonderful plant, Texas native, and a lot of our native pollinators really, really love it, as well as European bees, the honeybees that we all want to feed so much. So have you seen many bees since the freeze? Bees since the freeze.
I have. Yes, that was really exciting to see them come out. They were out like minutes after they could, the sun came out.
I was looking at my plum tree that has rebloomed since the freeze. It had actually fruit on it. They all dropped it. It's rebloomed. And I looked up and I saw a lot of pollinators. And then I looked closely, and the first few I saw were wasps actually doing pollinating. I was like, that's interesting. And then I was like, oh, are there no bees? And as I watched, I saw many bees. But the first few I saw were wasps. And just a reminder, wasps do pollinate. They love the nectar. They love the pollen.
Yes.
So not just bees that we're looking to take care of, but it's also our wasps. And the wasps do protect the garden from a lot of bugs. So that's another cool thing, which is why Jessica wants to bring in those flowers.
Yes.
All right, you ready for
Good.
question number
Great.
2? Yeah, for sure. For
Yes.
sure. All right, here we go.
For sure.
Number 2. This is from Jennifer. I'd like to grow corn from seed. All right. How many plants and how much space should it take? And when should I start it? So she has lots of questions. So basically, how much space and plants should be devoted to growing corn from seed? And then when should she get it going?
Okay, well, those are great questions. You can grow corn successfully in Houston.
For
and
sure.
what I would say is you need to get a good space, and that's obviously full sun, but enough to do 3 rows of. You want to plant them in rows of 3 so that they can pollinate each other. They don't use the benefits of bees and other pollinators for pollination. Sorry. So get you a good plot. You can do 3 rows, and they need like a mound. So you need to build up the soil a little bit so that it has like a 5% slope is what they call it. You can sow them directly in the ground. And once you get them in the ground, you want to make sure that your soil is well drained. So if you need to add some topsoil or some compost on there, or if you're using a raised bed, you can also make sure it's good soil. But just water them, make sure it's moist, and then they do not tolerate drought. They need consistent watering. So I would say in the beginning, and it takes about 2 weeks for them to germinate. So I would say in the beginning, maybe every 2 days, I would water them until they start to sprout. And then you'll probably just want to do, again, just keep up with the 2 days. And then the summer, probably every day.
That's awesome. Great growing corn advice. What about starting time? Would you do those now, or you're waiting a little bit?
Oh, sorry. That is one of the questions. Yes.
That's okay.
Yes, now.
Okay. That's what I was
now,
like.
no later than now. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was wondering because I actually want to follow this advice that Jennifer's looking for. So I'm looking to get some corn in too, and so now is the time to do it. And that's really a thing I wanted to hear, but I didn't know most of that stuff. I had heard that 9 plants was like the minimum, but then it's like you're saying that they're wind pollinated, they're not pollinated by bugs and stuff, and so you really want to make sure that like you have enough so that the wind can push from one plant to another. So the bigger the group, the better.
Right.
So when it comes to corn,
9 is great. Sorry, there's a lag.
well, it's okay. Just you keep going. I want to hear what you've got to say. So 9 is great, but
Oh, well, and it depends, especially when you're going to be planting. So you can plant anywhere between February and June, really, but it depends on the type of seed that you get. So you want to check with either your local feed store. That's a really good resource, or your local Ace Hardware. They normally have those types of crops there, those seeds. So you want to talk to them because there are certain seeds that are good for the early growing, and then there are certain seeds that are good for later growing. So but I would go ahead and get them in now if you can. And always it's a great resource to just talk to your local feed store or anywhere, that you trust that has those types of seeds. But there are many different types of seeds, and so it would be beneficial for you to speak with someone in person that's knowledgeable about which ones to plant.
absolutely, that's wonderful advice. I had a successful crop of corn only one time in my years of growing, and I think it's because I did a lot of corn. And I think I want to do that this year because I really enjoyed it. Some of them you didn't even have to take inside. You basically didn't cook them. You just let them get hot, and then you could eat them. And man, they was so sweet, so delicious. And so I think I want to do a bunch of corn this year. So I have the seeds, and I need to go do it. So Becky, thank you very much. Need to get that done now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
On to question 3. Here it is. It's from William. Will. Uh-oh. We kind of got after this a little bit, but William says, I think my citrus are dead. What should I do? I am tired of waiting. So I guess that's a fine sentence. I mean, it's like the colon there is throwing me off. So William is tired of waiting on his citrus. What should he do?
Well, first of all, William, I feel your pain. I also had a Meyer lemon that I think bit the dust, and I'm so sad about because it's been in the ground for a long time. However, Danny alluded to this earlier. You just want to do the scratch test right at the base, ground level, just to make sure what do they say that it is? It's like a slip. If you scratch
graft?
it and there's a slip, yes.
Oh, the scratch test.
Like below the graft. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Test. But
yeah,
anyway,
a sucker or whatever.
Right. But I think that if any new growth is coming from below the graft, I think that you should probably replace the tree. But if you think, a lot of people like to keep their citrus trees in pots for this reason alone, just for freeze, and because they are kind of temperamental.
Yeah, for sure.
Sadly, I don't know what kind of citrus tree he's talking about, so that would obviously change the answer to the question. But for my lemon tree, I'm 99% sure that it's dead. But like you were saying, what did you say? Kumquat is they do better.
Yeah, the range of citrus hardiness is wild. You got key limes that are really 32 degrees, 30 degrees, something like that. And then you've got kumquats and satsumas that are down in the mid to low teens. And so there's a broad range of citrus. So, people are kind of shooting off, oh, what's my citrus going to do? Well, what kind is it? I mean, right now, my satsumas look just as bad as my, navel oranges. And so I'm not sure what's going to happen with them. But I think it is tough to wait. But I'd fertilize it. I would put down something that's going to activate root growth. Things with ocean in the title are usually wonderful. Super seaweed. You have like Ocean Harvest. Those are both Microlife products. We love the Dakota Rev as a root stimulant. This exact same thing. There's lots of products that can help. But that's really a great thing to do right now is try to get those roots kicked off. And maybe it can save some of the lower part of your tree. But Becky, you were right. That graft line is key. anything above the graft, if that's what's coming back from the dead, that's great. You have this strong root system to support it. It'll grow back pretty quickly. But below the graft, that's a whole other plant. That's not the fruit tree that you love. That is the rootstock. So if you're really, really tired of waiting, I would just take it out, fill that hole back with another plant or something else. But I'm going to keep waiting on my citrus until I'm confirmed doom or success. So that's what I'm going to go for. Hope that helps.
Yes.
All right, here we are. Here, next question. We're jamming. We're doing great. You're doing great. Here we go. Next question. Okay, it is from Sarah. Sarah says this. She's looking for a good raised bed soil recipe. I have composted manure, peat moss, old potting mix that was made with manure and peat moss, vermiculite, garden lime, Epsom salt, and worm castings. Wow, that's quite a... What do you think about her raised bed soil recipe, and what do you like to do for raised beds?
That's a lot. That's a lot going on, and that's all great. I mean, if that's what you want to use. I think if you just stick with 50% compost, 50% a good quality topsoil, and the worm castings, of course, are great. I never know how to say this, but mycorrhizae, is that how you say it?
Mycorrhizae.
Mycorrhizae.
The fungi?
Thank you. Yes, I'm an amateur gardener, so I don't always get these names right. So mycorrhizae, yeah, if your topsoil doesn't already have that in there, I would add that into your topsoil. But it just, a good compost, a good topsoil, the worm castings, of course, are great.
Right.
And then, that's pretty much all you need, I think.
And there are some great companies that actually sell that fungi. There's a Wild Root, I know, is selling a fungi. I know that Monterey has a lot of great things for adding beneficials to the soil like that. So there's definitely ways to go that you can get that fungi in the soil that's really good. But I kind of get the impression from you, Becky, that you maybe think that this recipe that Sarah's got is a little over the top. It seems to have a lot in it.
Yeah, I think you just want to go with the basics to start out, and then as your plants need things, then you can kind of amend it at that point. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and whenever you're dealing with...
What do you think?
Well, whenever you're dealing with composted manure, you really got to be careful because you don't know what that animal has eaten. If it's a horse, that's probably a little bit better than a cow. Chicken can be actually really high in arsenic, which is not that great. And so some chickens, like if they're organic or whatever, they're eating less arsenic than non-organic chickens. And so it just ends up being this real touch and go thing with animal waste that I'm a little wary of. I mean, I want that stuff to age for years, but I'm with you. It's like, give me a great compost. And, a lot of times those companies that are making great compost will mix a great, topsoil in with it, and you'll have a great garden soil right there. So I'm a huge fan in Houston of the Nature's Way Resources Garden Light is what it's called. And it's got expanded shale in it. And they've also got a little bit of a mineral pack, which I think what Sarah was going for that, the mineral pack with a lot of the stuff that she was adding, the lime and stuff like that. But my go-to minerals are Nature's Way Resources makes it. It's called Remineralizer. And get this, Becky, there's 3. It's granite sand, Texas green sand, and another really good sand that's also real mineral rich. But it's got over 76 minerals in it, just this one product.
Wow.
And so if you're looking to add minerals, it's like a dream product for that. So really good stuff.
It sounds great.
Yeah, and it comes in a little bag. It's not very expensive. If I just used it in my veggie garden, that little bag, 2 bags would last me all year. I also love it as a yard treatment and a tree treatment too, because everywhere runs out of minerals. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Well, I think that's great advice. Kind of keep it simple. Don't go over the top on some of the stuff, and just when you're doing it from the first time, that's when you buy the good soil, and then you keep adding all your composted manure and your stuff to it as you go on. She did have a thing about vermiculite. Have you dealt with vermiculite in a raised bed garden?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either, and I really haven't seen that very often, but it's so like light and flaky, I would imagine it would sort of just go away in a setting like that. Yeah.
I can't speak to that.
Me either. All right, great. We'll move on. Next question. All right, here we go. This is our 5th question, record 5 questions today. This is from Laura, who seems very nice. She says,
Yes.
I have wisteria vines that have wrapped around wrought iron installments on the balcony. They're beautiful all year, every year. Well, that's awesome. That's so cool. I wonder what's coming next. However, after the recent freeze, they're bare. If it's still alive, A, how do I know? And B, what can I do to get it thriving again? So,
Well, first of all, I love wisteria. It's beautiful. It can get out of control, but as long as you keep it in control, they're just a wonderful addition to your garden. What I will say is you have a couple of things going for you. One, they are very freeze resistant plants, and 2, it's well established. So you said that it's been, blooming every year, all year. I don't know how long, but that's a great thing that they've already been blooming. So they are pretty resilient when it comes to freezes. I would say that if you're not seeing new blooms by the end of April, it's probably not looking good. But I would say that if you can wait until the end of April, I wouldn't doubt that you'll probably be seeing new growth at that point. And there's really nothing you can do at this point to do, I mean, other than fertilizing, which Danny had said earlier. That's always a great thing to do as you're waiting. But that's really the only thing you can do right now is wait.
yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things where it's like, we don't know where to prune back until we've seen new growth. And so, don't prune back that much. If you don't like it bare on your wrought iron, that's one thing. But it's the same with the shrubs, viburnum, azaleas. We won't really know where to prune back to until we see new buds come out. So you can go ahead and prune them, but you may need to reprune them, which is fine. It's fine, I guess, if that's what you want to do. So great answers, Becky. Nice job.
Oh, thank you.
Just answering all these
They
questions.
were great questions.
They really were. They really were great questions.
They were.
And so citrus is really on people's heart. And right now they're really kind of, I think it's really a plant because it makes food and it's that big evergreen shrub. People get very attached to it. And keep in mind, don't be off citrus forever, folks out there. This was a 70-year, 100-year freeze. We're not going to see something like this, hopefully, every single year. And, don't be afraid to do citrus again. Anything you plant now, you can dig up and bring inside. That's what I do with my lime quat. Even though it'd been in the ground for a year and a half, I dug it up and put it inside. So, but we're going to hear from Joey Linderman at Enchanted Gardens about a little more about citrus and some of his advice on checking to see how it's doing. So, Joey, over to you.
During this last hard freeze, a lot of people had problems with their citrus, and they look like this one. We just need to give it a little time, be patient, and hopefully in about 2 weeks we'll start to see some new growth come out of these. Now the tips of these probably will have died back. So what we're going to need to do is go back to the inside part of the tree where it was a little more protected and start scratching the branches to see where we run into some new green growth. And that is where the new growth is going to come out. So unfortunately, we probably will have to cut these trees back about 25%. But the good news is they have all their roots down below the ground and they'll come back even better.
Well, that is good news. If you're just losing 25%, and he's out there in the prairie, kind of west of Cinco Ranch, and so I know they got real cold. So any of those established citrus, there's hope for. So that is good news. That is good news. Hey, Becky, we got a question in the comment section from Perry, and so you want me to answer that? I'll read it to you. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay, so Perry says, howdy, that's, hey, are there some instances where the scratching the bark test for green does not work? Then Perry goes on to say, I stupidly cut back a viburnum, the ones with the egg-sized leaves, to the ground, and the neighbor's plant is starting to peek out with new growth. I regret it. Do you think it will come back? So viburnum plant. Actually, we actually did a video on viburnum because it is one of the ones that doesn't give you an honest scratch test. It will show this kind of like light tan if it's alive. And it's hard to find good advice out there. Home Show Garden Pros, we're trying to give accurate hands-on advice. And so try to stay up with what we're doing because that, I will say that probably most of your viburnum needed to be cut back anyway. It wasn't going to come out flush from the top. It was going to come towards the middle or the bottom. So you probably did the right thing because now you can control your hedge. Becky, I kind of jumped ahead of you there, but what do you think about Perry's question?
No, you answered it really well, and I think you're right. It is not a foolproof way to know if something is alive. The only way to know for sure is time, and I know that's not what we want to hear. But also, what was that second part about the burning? What did he say?
They just said that.
He said something.
No, well, they cut back theirs, and their neighbor's plant is peeking out with new growth already, so they're regretting cutting theirs back. I have seen a lot of, I'm guessing egg-sized leaves is the suspensum. And, that one, that's the one that also they smell bad when their leaves die. And it's like if you mixed kind of like moldy shoe with wet dog, you kind of get that smell on them. And, the bad smell is persistent, and you're not going to get a very consistent shrub from these dead or dying bushes, and so cutting them back is not a bad move. But there is a lot of kind of wisdom to the just wait a little bit, see where it's going to grow. But they were never going to come back full bore as they were. Some of the branches did die. Viburnum, when it scratch tests dead, it's really, really dark brown and kind of mushy. And so if that's what you're seeing, then that branch is dead. But you have to really scratch test every branch on a viburnum to see if it's dead or not. So I saw some really well-established ones in Memorial that were, 16 feet tall that are toast. And I saw some little ones in Westview that were not, that were fine. So it's really one of those plants that probably died at 15 degrees. And so Perry, depending on what part of town you're in, 15 was where you got. Some parts of town, they went way below that. So my brother in Brenham was down to like 6 degrees or something like that. So that's a tough one. And then Perry did say, yes, it stunk. I saw some messages about that before I actually experienced that myself. Becky, have you walked by any dead viburnum?
No, but some other ones that have smelled really bad.
Yeah, it's wild, the impact, the blast of scent. So Perry, I don't think you did I think you did the right thing by cutting down. I think that you weren't going to get a clean shrub after generally the whole line of shrub died. So don't regret it. Feel good. It's going to come back and you can maintain it again. It just may be a while. So, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Big thanks to Becky Griffin from Houston Gardening. Awesome club on Facebook that takes people. Just got to answer the questions. It's not a hard quiz, believe me. And, we're happy to answer your questions anytime on Home Show Garden Pros. You can message me directly on Home Show Garden Pros. You can ask an email on our great website, homeshowgardenpros.com. There's a ton of videos on there. There's written tips. We have a great planting calendar for your advice, and we just love answering your questions. We're literally here to help you improve your gardening game. So, Becky, great job. Thank you. Any closing thoughts?
One thing, you cannot be a perfectionist and be a gardener at the same time. So if it dies, just buy something else.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And, try growing stuff from seed. That's always a great way to do it. And
yes.
Kids love doing that also. So, well, thanks
for having
y'all.
Me, Danny.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you for being on here. And hope everybody can tune in this Saturday, 7 to 9, Home Show Garden Pros on Sports Radio 610.